Sagittarius, you are someone who sees far, flies high, and believes in light and absolute freedom. But have you ever asked yourself, why is it that every time you're about to take flight, something pulls you down? It's not a coincidence. It's not fate. It's a person, someone very close to you, familiar like family, or perhaps even once a spiritual ally on your journey. She carries a sweetness on the outside, but inside, she is thick with heaviness. Hair that shifts between golden brown and black, ever changing, like the way she camouflages herself. She smiles when you speak of dreams, but deep down, her heart stirs because she cannot reach your vision. And if you're feeling your heart tremble right now, know this is not an illusion. This is your intuition, a gift the universe gave you, to break a toxic loop that has weighed down your path for too long. Today, we're going to call her by her true name, not out loud, but with the courage to face her in your mind, as a sacred act of liberation for your wandering soul. And when you do that, your light will no longer be hidden. A curse, one that has quietly followed you for generations, will begin to unravel. If your heart is reacting right now, if you feel something ancient yet unnamed rising to the surface, then you are standing exactly where you're meant to stand. And before we go any further, I invite you to leave a gentle signal in the comments. I am a Sagittarius, and my light is no longer hidden. Just one sentence, but that's how you let the universe know you are ready, because right after this, I will show you who that person truly is, why they appeared in your life, and how you can walk away without ever looking back. There are people who enter your life as if they've always belonged there. They quietly take a place in your inner circle, offering comfort at just the right moment. A tender hug, sometimes even advice that feels like candy, spoken in a language so sweet you never expected that beneath it was something not entirely pure. And you, Sagittarius, with your open heart, you always made room for them. I know, because I used to be like you. I once believed that being kind enough, compassionate enough, would allow love to heal everything. Until I realized, some people don't want love. They want control, and sometimes, they use your own love to bind you. This woman, you already know who she is. Not by name, but by feeling. That chill in your spine every time you find it hard to fully celebrate your joy in her presence. You don't need me to name her. Your soul recognized her a long time ago. You were just waiting for someone brave enough to confirm it with you. Your feeling was never wrong. She might be a close friend, a relative, or someone once deeply connected to you on a spiritual path. Golden brown hair, sometimes jet black, a striking sense of style, always knowing how to hold attention longer than usual. But the energy she carries is never clear. It's a heavy kind of energy, like fog seeping through a window you forgot to close. She doesn't speak words that hurt you outright. She simply makes you doubt yourself every time you start to shine. Sagittarius, do you remember the times you just received good news and suddenly felt breathless? Or when you tried your very best, yet every door closed at the last moment? Maybe you thought it was just coincidence. But what I see in your energy field is no longer random. You are being pulled back by an invisible string, and part of your soul is tired. Tired of pretending not to see. Who's been holding the other end of that string? I want you to pause for a moment. Really pause, not to question anyone, but to feel. Who is the one person that exhausts you the most? Yet you still try so hard to keep them in your life? Because here's a truth I've learned. After years of witnessing spiritual bonds, not everyone who stays long is someone who was meant to stay. And not every ounce of love you give will be returned whole. There is a chapter in the journey of a Sagittarius that I call the season of broken wings. It's the moment when you're no longer light enough to fly, because you've been carrying too much that was never yours. And often, what pulls you down doesn't come from strangers. It comes from a familiar gaze, a voice you know by heart, someone who once held your hand at the beginning of your path, but cannot stand the sight of you soaring higher than they imagined. And if you're hearing this now and your chest tightens, don't ignore it, because this is not just a warning. This is the confirmation you've been waiting for a very long time. Let me ask you this. Why should you, a radiant, fierce, courageous soul, shrink yourself just to fit inside the narrow lens of someone else's comfort? Why should you stop speaking? Stop flying? Stop dreaming? Just because someone else can't bear the brilliance you carry? If this question is echoing in your chest like a bell, then I invite you to leave a commitment in the comments below. I will no longer shrink myself to fit someone else's fear. Just one sentence. But when you write it, the universe will listen. And right after this, I'll tell you something you've needed to hear for far too long. That person isn't just silently manipulating you. They've been using ways you never imagined to slow you down. They don't just speak behind your back. They manipulate you by using your kindness against you. And we will go there. But only when you're ready to cut the cord you once called family. Here's something not many dare to say aloud. Not all connections around you are simply person to person. Some ties, even if they wear the mask of closeness or shared blood, are actually energetic cords, knotted invisibly, subtly, and painfully. The woman I spoke of, Sagittarius, she doesn't just exist in the physical. I'm not here to instill fear. But I also won't pretend she's just a misunderstanding. No, your intuition was right. And it's deeper than you thought. She has been manipulating your energy field. You may not have seen it, but you've felt it. You felt strangely depleted after seeing her. You've had dreams that weren't dreams, but intrusions, as if something was slipping into your inner world. And worst of all, you felt guilty for even thinking this. Because you were taught to love, to forgive, to understand their circumstances. But love does not mean allowing someone to violate the boundaries of your soul. And that is the life lesson I want to offer you today. Not every silence is compassion. Not every act of tolerance is light. Sometimes, your refusal to speak up becomes the silent permission for manipulation to continue. I see it clearly in your field, Sagittarius, a gentle but persistent whirl, like someone is trying to anchor you to a worn-out version of yourself, so you can't move forward. And I say this with the gravity it deserves. That woman has sought spiritual intervention, not to heal, not to seek light, but to control, to monitor, to keep you within her reach. She's whispered prayers, not to bless you, but to hold you under an image she could easily manipulate. She turned to the unseen world, not to rise higher, but to pull you down. But do you know what she doesn't know? That the universe cannot be manipulated by envy. That light can never be blocked by darkness. Not if you choose to stand in your light. You may have been affected, but you have never been conquered. Because deep in your heart, you still keep a quiet flame, writing a few lines in your journal on nights no one sees, praying silently, and still daring to hope. And right now, I invite you to close your eyes, if you can. Take a deep breath, and let these words rise from the sacred space within you. I do not allow anyone to interfere with the light I carry. I am the sole owner of my soul. Write that sentence down. If you need a physical action to declare this to the universe, just one line, but an entire energetic system will begin to realign itself. I used to believe that those who turned to spiritual force to control others were simply lost souls, but later, I realized, they are not lost. They simply refuse to look at the path. And Sagittarius, you cannot stay behind waiting for someone who has no intention of stepping out of their darkness. You came here to move forward. And because you chose to take that next step, forces of light surrounding you have already begun to restore the balance. They've shown me something, that you are protected, that a shield of light surrounds you even now. And the moment you declare, I am no longer a prisoner of anyone else, every attempt to interfere with you will return to its source, not out of anger, but through the justice of the universe. And you know what? The signs have already begun to appear. A relationship that ended suddenly. A recurring dream. A message you never responded to. A strange gut feeling in moments of silence. These are not coincidences. And right after this, I will guide you through a new doorway. A place where you no longer need to hide. Where you no longer need permission to shine. Are you ready, Sagittarius? Because the next step is the final ritual of release. The moment you reclaim full ownership of your energy. And no one will ever touch that light again. There are truths you don't need to scream to the world. Just whispering them to yourself is enough to shift the entire universe. This ritual of release doesn't require smoke, or candles, or sacred spaces. What it needs is honesty. Sagittarius, you are the zodiac of truth, of soul-level freedom. And today, I'm not asking you to do anything elaborate. I'm simply inviting you to return to your inner voice. Begin with stillness. No need to turn off all the lights. No need for deep meditation. Just pause, truly pause. With no reaction, no justification, no escape. Find a quiet moment, a place where no one will interrupt. Sit, breathe slowly, and place your hand on your heart. Then speak aloud, or within, these words. I no longer carry what does not belong to me. I return all wounds, expectations, and manipulation that I have silently endured. I choose to keep only peace, light, and the truth of my voice. From today on, I will no longer shrink because of someone else's insecurity. I am free, and I give myself permission to be free. You don't have to say them all at once. You can stop at one. Repeat it often, or write them down slowly, one line at a time. Because speaking them aloud is the moment the cord begins to break. And if you're someone who needs a more tangible action, I suggest you try this. Write down their name. It doesn't need to be the full name, just enough so your mind knows exactly who you're speaking of. Then, write the following. I no longer play a role in this story. I do not need to fix, to rescue, or to understand. I only need to move forward. And once you fold that paper, you don't need to burn it. You don't need to destroy it. Just place it somewhere you won't often see. That act isn't about forgetting. It's about declaring to your subconscious, I've closed that chapter. You know, there are things in life that don't require forgiveness in the traditional sense. There are people, situations, you don't need to accept back in. You only need to release them from your energy field. Because real forgiveness is not about saying, I let it go for your sake. It's about choosing not to let that pain continue to live inside you one day longer. And if what I'm sharing here is resonating deep within, I invite you to leave a simple commitment under this video. As a gesture of energetic alignment, I release myself from what does not belong to me, or whatever truth rises from your own soul. The ritual doesn't make everything disappear overnight, but it is the first doorway where light begins to touch the corners that have stayed shadowed for far too long. And the magic is this. When you begin pulling your energy back from a toxic tie, the universe will begin bringing you healthier ones, not to compensate, but to show you this truth. When you free yourself, you're opening the road to your new destiny. And in the next chapter, I'll take you there, not with empty promises, but with a clear image of the version of you, no longer burdened, no longer acting, no longer limited. We will step into the season of rebirth, but you can only reach it when you dare to walk out of the old door. There are moments in life when one timely piece of guidance is not just direction, it's a hand extended from a place beyond logic, a place your soul once visited in a dream. And I'm not here to command you. I'm only here to remind you. Some things are simple, but when practiced, they can turn your life. 4. Clear out the list of people you keep just for the memories. There are people you once loved with all your heart. People you thought, we'll be forever. But time has shown you, they were only meant to walk with you for part of the way. Holding on to those no longer in resonance with your soul is like clinging to a letter that's already soaked and unreadable. You don't owe anyone a lifetime place in your world. You only owe yourself a space that is healthy enough for you to grow. 5. Rebuild your relationship with trust, but this time, trust in yourself. You've prayed so many times. You've asked the universe for signs. But have you ever paused and asked, do I trust myself? Not trust in perfection, but trust in your own ability to recover, to rebuild, to rise. Trust that even when everything falls apart, you won't disappear. You'll return. Stronger, clearer, more radiant than ever. 6. Say goodbye to the role of the strongest person in the room. You don't always have to be the one who carries it all, who keeps calm, who acts like the adult in every situation. There will be days when you just want to let go, to cry, to be held for no reason at all. And you are allowed to feel that way. Because healing isn't about appearing untouched. Healing is having the courage to be honest about what you're carrying inside. 7. Don't stay where you always have to prove your worth. If you constantly have to remind someone that you deserve respect, then maybe, just maybe, you're standing in the wrong room. You don't need to bow to be acknowledged. You don't need to humble yourself into invisibility. Sagittarius, you are natural light. And true light never asks for permission to shine. 8. Learn how to befriend endings. Endings don't always arrive with sound. Sometimes, it's simply the moment you stop replying. The moment you stop fixing. The morning you wake up and realize, I'm no longer there. Endings are not failures. They're confirmations that a new version of you is ready to begin. 9. Create a space that belongs to you alone. A small corner. A blank page. A voice memo. A space where you don't need a role. No filters. No need to appear fine for anyone. It's where you remind yourself, I don't need to be perfect to be loved. I don't need to understand everything to keep going. I don't need to be fearless to begin, just honest enough not to look back. 10. Remember, no one, not even the past, can take back the light you've chosen to keep. The pain you've been through does not get to define you. The ones who made you doubt yourself no longer get to hold the reins. You are walking forward now. And the light ahead isn't a reward. It's where you've always belonged. And if you're still here, Sagittarius, if you've been listening to these words and feel something in you beginning to shift, then I invite you to choose one truth that struck deepest and write it down. Not just to remember, but to mark a soul-level commitment to yourself. Write it like this: I choose to carry. And finish with what you need most today. Because in the next part of this journey, I'll show you what happens when a Sagittarius breaks free from the chains of the past and walks into their true destiny. No permission. No hesitation. No turning back. Are you ready for your rebirth? There are wounds you didn't create, but somehow, you are the one chosen to heal them. There's a moment in the journey when you stop. Not to run. Not to fight. Not to explain. But simply to look. Not out into the world, but inward. Into yourself. Sagittarius, you've walked a long, long way. You've crossed through loneliness no one else ever noticed. You've held peace for others, even when your own mind was roaring like an underground storm. You've learned how to smile in silence, how to keep going without needing anyone's applause, to believe you're on the right path. And you've also learned, in your own quiet way, that not everyone who walks beside you wants to see you soar. But today, I invite you to step in front of a different mirror. Not one that reflects your body, but the mirror of your soul. Imagine you're walking toward it. And for the first time, you're not seeing a distorted image shaped by judgment, comparison, or expectation. You're seeing a pure version. Radiant, full of light. Needing to prove nothing. Do you see it? That's you. Without the weight of old expectations. That's you. No longer living to please others. That's you. Choosing yourself. Not out of selfishness, but from gratitude. Gratitude that you're still here. Still breathing. Still healing. And above all, still brave enough to love yourself again, even after all the times you abandoned your own reflection. Sagittarius, This new vision of yourself is not a better version by society's standards. It's a more whole version. Because you've stopped hiding. You don't have to become anything to be worthy. You've always been that. You just needed time to finally see it with eyes that belong to the truth. And if something inside you is gently stirring right now, I invite you to share in the comments. I have seen myself, and I will not abandon that person again. Because when you write that, you're not just saying it to me. You're saying it to your own soul. That this time, we go all the way together. Not because you're weak. Not because you're broken. But because you have the power to break the cycle. The cycle that those before you never had the courage to look at. Sagittarius. Let me say something out loud. Something you've probably sensed for a very long time. But no one has ever confirmed for you. You are carrying not just your own story, but layers of memory from generations before you. Unspoken emotions, unhealed decisions, silent grief. And you are not alone in that heaviness. I know. There are mornings you wake up, and it feels like you're paying the price for something you never caused. A burden that's vague, yet crushing. A responsibility you never agreed to, but can't seem to set down. A sorrow without a name, but rooted so deep in your body, it won't let go. And if you're nodding quietly right now, I want you to know, you are not crazy. You are simply the first to dare look truth in the eye. Because there are wounds that don't scream. They hum in the background, repeating like an old song that made past generations choose silence. But you are Sagittarius. You did not come here to avoid. You weren't born to make dysfunction more comfortable. You came to break it. Not to destroy, but to end what has outlived its time. And yes, maybe you've been misunderstood for that. Called rebellious. Called too intense. Too independent. But here's the truth. You're simply refusing to continue writing a story you already know doesn't belong to your soul anymore. You know? I used to think that spiritual awakening was this beautiful, glowing, light-filled experience. But it's not. Sometimes awakening is nothing more than the moment you can no longer bear another lie. Even if it comes from the person you love most. There are things you must let go of. Not because you don't love, but because holding on would mean betraying yourself. And in this journey, letting go is not failure. It is courage. A quiet but powerful declaration. I will no longer carry forward these inherited wounds. This ends with me. If that sentence stirred something inside you, leave a vow in the comments. I choose to heal, not for the past, but for the future I deserve. Because there is one deep truth I want you to remember. You cannot heal what you keep pretending doesn't exist. And you cannot walk into the light if you keep carrying what was never yours to begin with. Today, by listening to this, you're not just hearing a tarot reading. You are reopening a chapter your ancestors were too afraid to finish. You're making a choice. Not an easy one, but a powerful one. To live honestly. To let go. To stop at the right moment. And when you do, that door you've been searching for will finally open. Not because a miracle arrives, but because you are the miracle. that's been waited on. In the next part of this journey, I will take you to a sacred place. A space where you'll see the truest version of yourself. No longer hidden beneath expectations, roles, or ancestral patterns. A place where you'll meet yourself again. For the first time. In full radiance. Needing no one's permission to shine. Are you ready, Sagittarius? Because what comes next is not just healing. It is the greatest reunion between you and your true destiny. Let me tell you something very clearly. Once you've seen the light, you cannot pretend you haven't. And from that moment forward, life will begin to test you. Not to punish you, but to help you solidify your new truth. The universe doesn't need you to be perfect, but it will call you to be more honest with yourself. You will see old faces return, with apologies, or the same silence that once wounded you. You will be placed in familiar settings, where once you stayed quiet, endured, or backed down. And the question will come again. But this time, you'll be different. Will you still strain to be accepted? Will you still stay silent to keep the peace? Will you still go back to places where your tears had to fall in secret, just to keep things comfortable for others? I'm not asking you to be strong every moment. You might collapse in the rain, cry behind the bathroom door, break quietly in ways no one sees. But as long as you do not abandon yourself, you are still the most admirable person I know. All I ask is that you remain honest with your soul, even if it means disappointing others. That is what true maturity looks like. It's not saying, "I'm fine," in every circumstance. It's standing tall and saying, "I wasn't okay before. And now, I choose not to return to that place." There will be days when you feel shaken, when you're tempted to compromise, when the old voice returns. Just go back, it's easier that way. That's the trap. Not laid by anyone else, but by the part of you that's lived too long in the comfort of old patterns. Sagittarius, you may feel alone during this transformation. Not because no one loves you, but because the ones who truly belong will only appear once you start living in full alignment with your soul. And if part of you is still wondering, do I really have the strength to keep going? Pause. Take a deep breath and say this to yourself. You once carried light alone through the darkness. So now, you won't back down just because the shadows of your past come knocking again. Leave a quiet affirmation in the comments. I will not shrink back into an old version of myself just to make others comfortable. And believe me, Sagittarius, if you hold your ground, everything that once made you cry will become the strength that lets you walk forward with your head high. Because right after the test comes the gift. Not something from the outside, but from the power you've just awakened within yourself. The greatest reward after the storm isn't the rainbow. It's the fact that you're still here, whole, breathing, radiant in a way no one can take from you. Sagittarius, you've moved through so many layers of energy. You've cut ties with the invisible cords that bound your spirit for years. You've learned to say no with grace. You've dared to walk away from what once felt familiar, because you could no longer pretend you were okay. And that's why the universe is now opening a door just for you. No fanfare, no fireworks, no applause. Just a morning where you wake up Look out the window and see the light streaming in gently through the curtain. A small message from someone unexpected. A moment where your heart no longer feels noisy. Just quiet, gentle clarity. A deep knowing that peace is no longer a luxury. It's the place you live from. Day by day, breath by breath. The reward won't always come in material form. It will come as a friend. You no longer have to second guess. As a relationship where you don't have to pretend. As a decision you make without asking for anyone's approval and still feel at peace after. It'll come as a project that holds your soul. As a belief that doesn't break just because someone else doesn't get it. And the most beautiful reward of all is this feeling. At last, I am living my own life. Maybe you once thought the reward had to be something big. But Sagittarius, you know what's the most miraculous thing? You, right now, are the reward. Because you've cleared the ground of your soul. You've learned to replant with seeds of light, truth, and gratitude. No longer tangled in who's right or wrong. No longer living against anyone. Just living in alignment with who you are. And when you do that, you become a mirror. Not by effort, but by presence. You become the kind of soul that lost ones can sense and somehow remember who they are again. You don't need to carry a torch to light up the world, because the light inside you is already enough. And if you're smiling quietly to yourself right now, leave a small vow in the comments. I am my own reward. And I will live in a way that honors that. Because the ending is near. Not to close something, but to remind you. This isn't the final page of a tarot reading. It's the first chapter of the life you've now chosen. Are you ready to close the old door? Because next, we'll step into the farewell. Not with tears, but with a blessing. If you've stayed with me this far, know this. You haven't just listened to a reading. You've walked through a ritual, a journey, a silent transformation. You are not who you were at the beginning. The outside may still look the same, but something inside you has shifted. You've faced things many people are afraid to name. You chose truth over comfort, freedom over false applause, and you've stepped into your own light. Without asking, without waiting, without apologizing. And because of that, I bow to you with all the respect in my soul. I once didn't believe anyone could walk through darkness alone, until I saw you, still standing, still breathing, still choosing light. Sagittarius, I don't know where you are right now. On your bed, in your car, on a tired morning or a restless night. But I know this for sure. You didn't find this by accident. You were called. And you listened. And now, as this door closes, another one is opening. No rush. No pressure to be ready. Just this knowing. From this moment on, you never walk alone again. And if what you received today touched something in your soul, leave a message, an emoji, or a quiet vow in the comments. Not just for me to see, but for you, to mark the moment you began again. And if you wish to keep walking this path, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, share this with someone who might be waiting for a ray of light. You never know? Sometimes a single video can save a soul that's running low. I'm your companion on this journey. And I'll be back. With new messages. New awakenings. And doors that have never been opened before. Until then. Live. Breathe. Fly. Like a Sagittarius who once lost their way. But never gave up. I'll see you in the next chapter. And never forget. What is meant for you will come. And no one will be able to stop it.